We are so close. 5 to 10 years. We are going to cure basically all cancers, I am convinced. And a little bit longer to stop aging and to reverse aging.
I think to be able to be immortal, we have to learn to die as well.
Immortality already exists in biology. It's not a dream, it's not science fiction, it's not philosophical, no. Biological immortality exists. But now we are very close to defeat aging. This is the end of the war against aging and death. So I am not going to stop. My goal is to kill death before death kills me. And this is a matter of time. We are talking about 10 years, 20 years, maybe a little bit more. It depends on how much people understand that this is real.
Imagine pessimistic hunter-gatherer, right? He tries to, have some food and tries to hunt for some animal. He's not succeeding and he's like, oh, well, I guess I'm gonna die of hunger. No, he has to be optimistic. He has to go on. That's what we have to do.
Immortality!
Welcome to Brain VR Podcast. I'm sitting here with Jose Cordeiro. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much to be here with you.
Yeah, I'll introduce you a little bit. So, Jose Cardeiro is a futurist, author, and engineer from MIT who specializes in technological trends and their impact on society. He was born in Caracas, Venezuela, to Spanish parents who emigrated from Madrid during the Franco dictatorship. Cordeiro has worked extensively in areas such as economic development, international relations, monetary policy, comparison of constitutions, energy trends, cryonics, and life extension. He has authored several books, including The Death of Death, The Scientific Possibility of Physical Immortality and Its Moral Defense, which explores the possibility of using technology and science to eliminate diseases and death. In this book, Cordeiro and his co-author David Wood present the latest development, initiatives, and ideas for eternal life and show why there are several good arguments for seeing death as the last undefeated disease. This book also is translated into 12 languages and is international bestseller. So I'm very excited to have met you here. We are sitting in Roatan, Italia City, longevity crypto tech community, and kind of an experiment. So maybe the first question would be to come back a little bit to your background, because as I said, you are an engineer from MIT. So how does one get from engineering at MIT to being interested in longevity and immortality? And one of my best experiences with you is whenever there's like a public talk about longevity and immortality, you usually end the sentence with a scream of immortality, which I really like. It's like a meme here. So thank you for that.
Yes. So I like to scream always immortality, so that people know that we are here to defeat aging and defeat death forever. So it is great to be here in the Caribbean to talk about all these new technologies that will radically change humanity. And as you said, I am an engineer because I like technology, and I always wanted to go to space. When I was a kid, I saw the first moon landing, 1969, when the astronauts landed on the moon. And that was really so incredible that I wanted to go to the moon and beyond. And for that, we need to live longer and longer. And so in the last 10 years, I have been advocating for reversing aging, curing aging. And this field is moving very fast, especially in the last few years. This field is growing exponentially. And I am so excited. This is the best time to be alive and to remain alive.
Mm-hmm. And okay, so that's your kind of a short version of the journey. So you wanna go to space, therefore to go to space, to moon, to expand humanity to space, right? We need to live longer. We need to extend health span. We need to understand our biology better, how they adapts to new environments in the space and stuff like that. But could you maybe describe some of the most decisive, most important moments in your life, like some insights where you really felt like this is maybe your calling, this is like the direction that you want to take your life through? Because it's been, how many years have you been in the space of longevity?
It's about 10 years. 10
Okay.
years.
Okay.
And actually, there were three main reasons that made me move and dedicate my life to immortality, to kill death. I like to say I want to kill death before death kills me.
Ah, nice.
And the reason is that sadly, my father died 10 years ago. And when someone close to you dies, it's a shock. So that was a very personal and sad experience for me. I did not expect, my father to die, also the way he died. So that made me think a lot. Also, at about the same time, in 2012, the Nobel Prize in Medicine was given to a Japanese scientist who discovered 4 genes that control aging. Shinya Yamanaka from Kyoto University. And he has become world famous because among over 20,000 genes to discover 4 genes that are related to aging was amazing. And now we know that scientifically we can stop aging and reverse aging. To me, this was incredible. Something that was like science fiction. Today, we know we can stop aging and reverse aging. And the final point is that I myself am beginning to feel that I am aging. And I don't like to age. I don't recommend it to anyone.
Don't age, please.
Yes. Or as Brian Johnson says, don't die. Don't die. But you're right. Better don't age, and then you will not die.
Yeah.
So anyway, those 3 things. My father dying, technology advancing very fast, the Nobel Prize in Medicine in 2012, and my own aging. Yeah. Which is sad. I used to run marathons 20 years ago, and the last one was half of the San Francisco Marathon in 2013. And then I haven't run marathons. Also, I don't do training. Maybe I should restart, but I'm a bit lazy for that. Anyway, so we are going to be developing and getting back many of these abilities of our youth, because now we can grow muscles. There are many therapies where we can grow back our muscles and other fantastic things.
This is amazing. The second thing you mentioned, that's fascinating to me because at the time, few years ago, 5-6 years ago, there was a big deal to learn the what Yamanaka discovered, and then the 4 Yamanaka factors. It's literally called Yamanaka factors that reverse cells into their stem cell form, and he was able to do it with skin cells.
Yes.
And I remember this moment where we were sitting on a lecture on biology of a cell on Charles University in Prague, and our one of the most favorite teacher, one of the best scientists in Czech Republic, was telling and being very, very into the Yamanaka factors and what we can do, and actually talking about aging and the potential possibilities, right? But like for someone that is not in that field, for you saying this is possible, and people who are coming from different fields and have not been in that field, they might feel like, oh, that's insane. That's too much. That's crazy. So
it was incredible.
Yeah.
Incredible.
So this one is a big deal that we've discovered. I want to hear more about that, but maybe expand more on the second point, on the why. What is leading you to believe that we are able to do that, and also to maybe do that in your life, So what are more of those discoveries and thoughts behind that?
Well, this discovery was incredible, that using these Yamanaka genes or Yamanaka factors, that you could stop aging, reverse aging as well. And if you think about it now that we have done it, it seems very easy and very logical, because the genome is the same now as it was 20 years ago, or as it will be 20 years in the future. So if the genome is the same, why sometimes are you old or sometimes you were young? And the fact is that there is what is called epigenetic, which is above genetics or beyond genetics. So the genetics are the same, but the way the genes are expressed is different. So with the same genes, you can be young or you can be old. Something which is even more incredible. And if you think about it, it's very logical, but the first time it is shocking. The genome of a neuron is the same as the genome of a skin cell or the genome of a cardiac cell in the heart. So if the genome is the same, why do you have neurons and skin, muscles, and a heart? And the reason is the same. Certain genes are expressed and certain genes are not expressed according to the type of cell that you want. Yeah. So this is logical, but it was kind of science fiction even 20 years ago, when also a scientist was able to change a skin cell into a neuron. This was done also with the skin of mice, because mice are biologically very close to us. We are about 90% equal to a mouse, or a mouse is 90% equal to us. So genetically, we are very close. And even the closest animal to us is the chimpanzee. The chimpanzee and we humans, we share 99% of the genome. So we are incredibly close. And these Yamanaka factors are the same in the chimpanzee, in the mouse, and in us. And we know it works in different species. This same for Yamanaka genes or Yamanaka factors. So anyway, something that was science fiction has become science reality. And we can change neurons into heart cells, and we can change old cells into young cells. And this is just beginning, because this was done in vitro, that means outside of the living mouse, and on skin cells. Now this has been replicated in vivo, that is in the animal alive, and also on different tissues, on different type of cells, and even more incredibly on whole organs, with the eyes of mice, and this was also done with the eyes of monkeys, which are very close to us. They were rejuvenated. They took monkeys that were like 80 human years old equivalent, and their eyes were rejuvenated, and the monkeys had been blind and they could see again. The same was done with mice that were blind of age 80 human equivalent. They were given their own eyes when they were age 20.
Wow, yeah, this is incredible, and supposedly this work is being now translated, and some new trials are being done on humans, I think, with at least with the eyes and with sight. And what is very interesting, what you said about epigenetics, we always use this metaphor of like the same genes are in your skin and in your eye. But if you have, skin cells in your eye, it's very useless. It's very damaging, actually. So aging is kind of a cell kind of forgetting who it's supposed to be and what it's supposed to do in the tissue. And if you can, make it be the same old cell as it was to fulfill its function in the right tissue that it is, that's one way to do that. And now we have like several ways to access the genome, the epigenome, and several ways how to affect both of those. And there is also one more thing that is important to mention, though, because some of the genes are actually changed throughout our life based on replication of the cells. And during every replication, there are some damages in the cells.
Mutations.
And mutations, exactly.
So this is one of my favorite cases that people should know. Scientists discovered in 1951 that cancer cells are mutations that stop aging. This was discovered with a patient called Henrietta Lacks. That was a black woman in the USA. She had a huge cervical tumor. The doctors extracted the tumor and began analyzing it, and they discovered that the tumor kept on growing and growing and growing. Well, that tumor is alive today. This woman, I repeat, Henrietta Lacks, was born in 1920. Now we are in 2024. That means that those cells from her body are about 104 years old, and they reproduce like teenagers. These cancer cells reproduce indefinitely. And people do not realize that we have immortal cells. Cancer cells become biologically immortal. In fact, this is the expression that is used in biology. They are biologically immortal cells. We also have other biologically immortal cells, which are germ cells. Our germ cells for reproduction, also they do not age. They are considered biologically immortal because they do not age and they could live indefinitely. So when people tell me that immortality is impossible, I say, why is it impossible? We have germ cells that do not age and that are called biologically immortal. And we have cancer cells that discovered immortality. And cancer cells didn't go to Charles University in Prague or to MIT in the USA, but cancer cells discovered immortality. So it is not that complicated. And I am an engineer. I'm a practical person. And when I see something that works, I say, well, if it works, we can do it. We can replicate it, and we can do it even better, even better. That is why I'm so excited that we are very close to cure cancer, because now we understand how cancer mutates and stop aging. And we will use this to reverse engineer those mutations so that cancer cells do not become immortal because they are bad, but the good cells also become immortal. More good cells, not just the germ cells, which are the most important because those are the cells we need for reproduction, but the whole body can become biologically immortal. And talking about the whole body, there are also some small organisms that are biologically immortal, like the immortal jellyfish and some hydras that do not age. They can live forever. They can live hundreds, thousands, millions of years until something kills them, because if a rock falls on the poor immortal jellyfish, it will probably die, even if it does not age, because immortal jellyfish, hydras, they do not age, and therefore they could live forever and ever, unless they have an accident or another animal eats them or something like that. So the proof that immortality is possible is that it already exists in nature. We don't have to invent it. It already exists. And engineers and scientists, we are going to understand why. We are so close. 5 to 10 years, we are going to cure basically all cancers, I am convinced. And a little bit longer to stop aging and to reverse aging.
Yeah, this is fascinating to me. As a person who is very open-minded, but also skeptical, I think those things go together. But, skepticism, you have to be skeptical about your own skepticism. Therefore, to anyone who is skeptical about the thoughts that you are saying right now, I would just stop for a second and be skeptical about the skepticism itself. Because as you are saying, you have very strong arguments of just something being possible. Just the thought and mindset shift of like, oh no, let's not even talk about this. Sometimes this topic is sometimes like, let's not talk about it. That's kind of a taboo, right? So what I'm hearing you say is like, okay, let's open this topic up, and you, of course, there are extremes always, right? So you may be saying, oh, okay, it's 5 to 10 years, a little bit more, and we are able to cure that. Some people, it's not possible. And I think that the reality is going to be somewhere in between, somewhere of those two extremes. But I think it's very interesting to just open up to the possibility of it being possible, because if we can see that the stuff that we are made from, the cells, that create our organism, and if we can see that they can be immortal. And this is very famous in biology. If you do study biology and you have biology of a cell as a lecture, there are famous cell lines that are being cultivated throughout years because there's some special disease and you can buy the cell line to do experiments on the special disease. This is very, very known. Therefore, for biologists, paradoxically, it's very, oh yeah, of course, cells can survive basically forever, right? If you give them right environment and all these things. So I appreciate this move of just like opening ourselves up to that. And now
most people do not know that cancer discovered immortality. And everybody should know it, because this was done in 1951, not yesterday. 73 years ago, doctors discovered that what cancer does is that it stops the aging process of the cell. Yeah. So cancer cells do not age. They become biologically immortal. And it doesn't matter which type of cancer. Cancer of the skin, the blood, the pancreas, your cancer, my cancer, your cancer. What is common is that the cancers stop aging. And most people don't know it. And most people don't know that also there are 4 genes that control aging, at least in mammals. And this is also very important. When we talk about mammals, because we are mammals, there are mammals that live only about 2 years, like some mice and some shrews, as they are called, tiny, small animals, 2 years or less. And we have whales that live 200 years.
And sharks, right? Which are not mammals, but like
yeah, exactly.
Still organism, right?
That's the idea. In mammals, we have 2 orders of magnitude from 2 to 200. And then we have other animals, like sharks lived 500 years. And some other animals, like clams, also clams that have lived centuries. If we move, and besides the immortal jellyfish and the immortal hydras that they can live forever unless something kills them, plants also live longer. We have plants that live thousands of years. Some formations, some algae, in fact, and some other connected trees that have lived for hundreds of thousands of years. Yeah. So that this already exists in nature, very long-lived life forms. And people need to know that this is scientific. And we have been discovering this relatively recently. Mm-hmm. You know, 100 years ago, we didn't know even how long a shark lived or a whale. So we have been discovering little by little. But again, to me, the final proof is that immortality already exists in biology. It's not a dream. It's not science fiction. It's not philosophical. No. Biological immortality exists. And we just need to understand why. And we are going to. We are so close. And this is moving exponentially. You know, 10 years ago, or maybe 15 years ago, we couldn't talk about this and being so close, but now we can. And we have all these technologies advancing exponentially, and we are learning more, we are collaborating more, and there are more and more scientists. You know, 30 years ago, maybe there were a handful of scientists working on aging and anti-aging. Today, there are already hundreds and hundreds. Very soon, there will be thousands and thousands. This is the fastest growing field in medicine, aging and longevity.
And also it makes sense to fund this, right? Because it's not about, so this was another maybe like argument or counter argument or question. It doesn't really mean that we are going to be, like not able to move, like being somewhere and just like pumped by some chemicals to be able to survive. But it's not about that. It's actually first about extending the health span. So we are not only talking about the lifespan, which is then maybe sometime immortality, right? Mm-hmm. But health span is itself. So what is health span and what is the idea of health span? And maybe then the paradox of opposition to extending health span that you've written about in the book.
Yeah, well, actually, I think we do have lifespan, which is the time we live, and then health span, the time we are healthy. A friend of mine even talks about sex span, the time we are even sexually active. And they are not necessarily the same times, but we want to prolong all of them and keep on living longer, healthier, younger, because the goal and what we think is possible is to live indefinitely young. Not indefinitely old, because no one wants to be old forever. No, that would be torture. But we want to live indefinitely young, and we know that this is possible. And this is advancing very fast. In fact, you know, I make some forecasts when these technologies will be available and what we will be doing in the 2030s and the 2040s. So this is incredible. One of my phrases is that we are between the last mortal generation and the first immortal generation. Mm-hmm. We are in the threshold of killing death.
Right. Yeah, so now it's amazing. I would love to, still there might be people with arguments like, but yeah, it's not natural, death gives life a meaning, and I might think about these things as well, right? Like
no, this is very stupid. I like to
I know
that immediately.
Okay.
It's like saying that death gives meaning to life. It's like saying that divorce gives meaning to marriage. Yes. It's really stupid. If you are married, it's because you love the person. Yeah. And if you want to stay alive, it's because you feel well. It's not because you are waiting to die.
Yeah. This is exactly my counter argument to that. Like, we don't know what we don't know, and we can't imagine the things we can't. Like, we are not there yet, right? And there's this beautiful quote, even not just from science, just like for humans in general, to really put themselves in position they've never been in, right? It's not really that easy to imagine something that's not here yet. Yet we have so many new technologies and so many things that we were like, oh no, I will never use this, and we will never be able to adopt this new thing, this new technology. That's good old days, right? But then you find yourself using that thing. You find yourself enjoying that thing and saying, oh wow, yeah, I do use that thing. It might have some negative effects, but it gave me so much more than it stole from me, or something like that, right? And the line is right at the start of the book is, science does not know its debt to imagination. And I love that line, and I would love to use it even in our personal lives.
Yeah, we need to create, to imagine, to dream about the future. But talking about life, the purpose of life is life. The first life forms in the planet were bacteria that replicated, copying the chromosomes. The chromosomes of these first bacteria were round chromosomes. They didn't have a beginning and an end. They had no telomeres. So the mother bacteria was equal to the daughter bacteria. And so you could say that they were immortal bacteria. Those bacteria did not really age. So the first life forms on the planet were immortal. Do you think that these bacteria appeared because they wanted to die? No, they appeared because they wanted to live. The purpose of life is more life. And this is so deep that a friend of mine that is working on Mars exploration, he's trying to see if they find bacteria on Mars that do not age. That do not age and do not die, because that would be beautiful. He says he's looking for a planet, maybe Mars, maybe another planet where there is life, but there is no death. Because the first life forms didn't have death on them. These first bacteria, they didn't age. So, in fact, we might have a bacteria that is 3 billion years old somewhere. Because there was no aging in these bacteria with round chromosomes.
And do we actually know that?
Yes. Well, of course, there is a lot of extrapolation because we haven't seen these first bacteria, these first organisms.
Of course, yeah.
But it is supposed, obviously, very small cells with round chromosomes.
Very, very simple, yes.
Yeah, and a round chromosome, they replicated, dividing itself. So this is also very interesting because these bacteria ruled the planet for about 3 billion years until the first multicellular organisms appeared. When these multicellular organisms appeared, it's also because of sex. Sex actually allowed more evolution because you had two different life forms that mated and had descendants, and there was more possibilities of mutations. Until that time, until there was sex, there was no death. So this is interesting to think about. It was sex that brought death of somatic cells. We have two types of cells, germ cells that do not age, and somatic, soma, body, cells that age.
The germ cells basically don't age because they don't replicate. The sperm cells do actually, but like the women ones, they actually, they have them from they've been born, and they have they can have more basically. So
yes. But in the case of men, we continuously reproduce,
we do,
make a sperm, and the germ cells that make a sperm, they also grow their telomeres so that they keep on reproducing and dividing and making sperm, which actually was also discovered in cancer. This is what cancer does to stop aging. They grow their telomeres, which are the final parts of the chromosomes.
They are protecting the chromosomes.
Yes, and it allows them to divide indefinitely. In the case of women, it's also very interesting because a woman is born with a number of eggs throughout their lives. But I think it will be possible soon to make these germ cells that are like sleeping to continue producing eggs in the future for women. So we live in incredible times. We are learning so much about science. And that was science fiction before, as I mentioned. Even organ transplants. Organ transplants are normal today. This was impossible 100 years ago. There were no organ transplants, and now we can transplant kidneys, livers, hearts, lungs, and not only transplant them from other humans, also from animals, and also there are, you could say, biomechanic hearts, biomechanic different organs, also legs, arms, even eyes. We have bionic eyes. So we are understanding more and more how biology works. We are copying it, reproducing it, and making it better. You know, some of these bionic eyes can see 10 times more than we can. And they can see at night. We cannot see well at night. But there are animals that can see at night. There are animals who can see very far away, like eagles. Eagles can see incredibly far. So we can modify our own eyes with technology to see better, to see at night. So anyway, the world is full of possibilities. And these things, again, already exist. I would be happy to see like an eagle or a cat at night. And it is possible because cats and eagles do it.
Yeah. So there was a question from one of the Vitalia residents, from Yash. It's maybe now very relevant to the things that we are talking about. What are the things that longevity and immortality might bring and that are actually bad? Like, what are the things that we are not seeing that might that most people don't think about? Have you thought about maybe some negative side effects of this type of thought, of the augmentation, longevity, and immortality? Is there something?
Yes. And there is nothing bad, nothing wrong about being immortal. And I will explain it to you talking about health. What is bad about curing Alzheimer's? What is bad about curing cancer? What is bad about curing heart attacks? We all want to cure Alzheimer's, cancers, heart attacks. The same with aging. We want to cure aging. What is bad about being young and healthy? Tell me, what is bad about that? There is nothing bad. And if there are some problems, and there will always be problems, you don't solve those problems killing people or giving them cancer or giving them Alzheimer's. That's not the way to solve any problem. So if there is anything wrong or bad, I say no. What is bad about being alive, healthy, youthful, full of ideas, imagination, creativity? Nothing. But some people might say, oh, we are too many people. Oh, we don't have enough resources. And that is not true. First, the population of the planet is stabilizing and it is beginning to decline.
In the developed West countries, Northern Europe, and Japan, the population goes radically down, and it is going to have they are going to have big problems. The demographics there, it's kind of scary for them. They actually need people to come there soon.
China is horrible. China is experiencing a demographic implosion.
It's insane.
In 2023 was peak China. Now the population begins declining, and by the end of the century, in 2100, it is expected that the population will be half of what it is now. Half. Yeah. So that is like 2 Europes disappearing, like 740 million people will disappear from China.
And just people might be, oh, that's like big speculation. But no, actually, it's demographic data. And we see what the China, the policies, people are regularly, killing their newborn girls because the policy of one child, they needed a man. A boy. Therefore, there's many men, but there's no women that would, much less women, and they can see it in the demographics, and we can see the big population boom. And those are people that are still working now, but those people are soon going to go to not the working healthy age, right?
Retire.
And now there's no one going to be who will take care of them because there's not enough people in the working age, and it's a matter of tens of years, we are not saying now, but it's in 20, 30, 40 years, that's going to be a huge problem. And there is data on that, beautiful, kind of scary, but people are talking about it. And it's fascinating to see something like that. And China didn't see the second and third order effects of their decisions.
Yes. Well, also in Japan didn't implement any of these policies, but they have the same problem.
Yeah.
We normally thought that there was a demographic pyramid with a lot of children and few adult people. Now it's the opposite. The pyramid is like this, no children and a lot of elderly people. And this is irreversible unless we stop aging, because, for example, in Japan now, and soon in China, average age is in the middle 40s. What does this mean? Women cannot conceive at age 45. I mean, it's not easy.
The average population is growing older, therefore they can't really reverse it that much, and there is not enough young people to be able to produce more.
Yes, but anyway, we are going to reverse aging. The goal is 2045, and I explained that in the book. We expect to reach 2030 for longevity escape velocity. That means that if we make it to 2030, we will gain 1 year per year we survive. So we will be living longer and longer and longer, but still aging, still aging.
So let me understand this correctly. So I come to year 2030, and the science and technology and stuff is going to be so advanced that we are year by year are going to be able to extend our health span and our lifespan a little bit more than a year, and then a little bit more than a year. Therefore, every year I'm gaining
time,
at least 1 more year.
That's right.
Right.
But still aging until 2045, when we expect to have rejuvenation technologies. So it doesn't matter if we are 70, 80, or even 90 by the year 2045, because the goal is biological rejuvenation. And as we discussed, this is very scientific. We know that we can reverse aging. So that's one thing. We are very close, and we need to accelerate this process. But talking about overpopulation, Malthus, the British economist Malthus, in the 1700s, he said it was the end of the world. There were too many people. At that time, London had 1 million people, and he said it was over with 1 million people, and England had 10 million people, which is nothing. Today, London has 12 million people, which is more people than all of England.
And all of Czech Republic.
Yeah. But anyway, so these people saying that too many people, not enough resources, have always been there. And they will probably be there also. But we create more, and every time we are more productive. We produce more and more with less and less resources. And the ultimate resource are humans, because we have this capacity to create, to imagine, to change, to improve. It is true that we eat a lot and we destroy things, and that we excrete also and create pollution and so on, but we come with the brain. The brain is, as far as we know today, the most complex organ, the most sophisticated structure in the known universe, certainly in this planet, but until we find other life forms, there is nothing more complex than the brain. So that is why we are advancing so much. We are creating so much, because this is very important. It's more important than the mouth and the ass for destruction. The creation part is more important.
Yeah, I also hear sometimes arguments like, oh no, like humans, they should, even some people like, oh, we should not be here and destroy this planet and all these things. But like, I think there is some misconception about what humans are. We are this planet, we are life, and if we are going to succeed, life is going to succeed. If we die, some other organism might destroy other things. It's about actually taking accountability for the horrible stuff that we did to humans, to other species, trying to reverse those and then expand on that. And actually, if you see trends, for example, from book Factfulness, things are getting better. Many things are getting
much better. We live in the best of times. So when you talked about the good old days, they never existed.
I know.
There were never good days in the past. I mean, compared to today. Today, we live in the best world in history,
Yeah.
but it is still worse than the future. The future will be even better than the present. This is like love. You need to tell your love partner, I love you so much more than yesterday, but less than tomorrow.
That's beautiful. I love this so much. I share the optimism because I think that just if you are trying to see the data, you'll see that we are actually trying to reverse the mistakes that we've made. Yes, we are in wars. If you look at tribes, though, they are at least in one war per 2 years. It's nothing new. War's always been here, and we just have to realize and grow the humanity to a level where no one would even think of starting a war or something. And that's another thing that's kind of troubling me. How in the hell still on the planet Earth are these things possible? But I think that there are people and individuals that are expanding the humanity's access to be able to go beyond the planet Earth itself. And then there are like Dyson spheres and all these other scientific, very like futuristic ideas. But I think we don't even know what problems we are able to solve yet with technology.
Of course.
And that's the biggest idea for me. Like, hey, let's just try to be open and try to solve these things. Don't ignore just those problems. No, don't ignore them. Accept them, take responsibility. But the responsibility doesn't mean, oh, well, we are doomed. No, it means let's do everything that's in our capabilities to be able to solve this and move forward, And that's where I think we are increasing the chance of new people, new students, new young people being born and having this interest. There has to be hope. There has to be the optimism.
Of course.
Imagine pessimistic hunter-gatherer, right? He tries to, have some food and tries to hunt for some animal. He's not succeeding. And he's like, oh, well, I guess I'm going to die of hunger. No, he has to be optimistic. He has to go on. That's what we have to do. And we have to give that to other people as well.
Yeah, in terms of evolution, we can see why sometimes we are very negative and pessimistic because we have a gland, the amygdala. The amygdala gland is there to protect us from bad things. So we need to be very worried about bad things because bad things can kill us. So we multiply by bad things 100 times. Even though human condition has improved, and it will continue improving. But good things are not news because they will not kill you. A good news will not kill you. A bad news might kill you. That is why in our brains, we have this exaggeration of bad news.
The negativity bias. Yes.
Absolutely. But we have never lived in a better time than this, even in life expectancy. At the time of the Roman Empire, average life expectancy was about 20 years. That is also because many people died as children. And most people died very young, and children 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, also of infections. People don't die of that today. Well, today in advanced economies, life expectancy is already over 80 years. So we have moved from 20 average to now 80, and this will continue increasing. But soon also with rejuvenation, which is the important thing. We will be 80, but with age 20. This is the goal. And this is what I like to say. In fact, let's watch this interview in the year 2045.
Okay, let's do it.
Because
accountability now, everyone.
Yes.
Yeah, watch it again.
In the year 2045, so that you see ourselves when we were old today. Old today, because we will be younger in the future.
Wow.
So you see, remember in 2024, look at how old we looked.
Yeah. I wanna do this experiment. Like take your mobile phones out. It's weird to ask you to take our mobile phones out and go into the calendar and do an event in 2045, right? Put the link to this interview and watch it and remind yourself, how old am I? And am I younger or older? I'm very curious, and this can age, and we can say in those like 20 years or something, we can see the comments there. Hey, I watched it again, and you are like full of shit. or you're right, or we are close and still not there. So I'm very curious what's going to happen. Wow.
Well, I'm totally convinced that this is just a matter of time. And I think it might be even before 2045, It could be if we advance faster, if there is more research, if there are more scientists, more engineers, this could happen in 10 years.
Yeah. I just want to say there are two things that are on my mind, and I kind of want to... I agree with you in a lot of things. I don't agree on the time, though. And I don't agree I agree, but there's some things that are bothering me a little bit. The mental health crisis that we are going through. And I don't think it's just that we are now, people are more we are measuring it more. I don't think it's an artifact. I think it's real that people are struggling with meaning crisis and all these things. And maybe for some people, I don't want to be immortal in this world. I don't feel like I matter in the world, and all these things. I think first we need to solve this for us to be able to popularize this, because we need people behind this idea. And we need people full of life that want to live life, and I think that's the first step to focus on that's why we do this show, right? It's actually scientific, but also very focused on mindset, on mental health, and improving our subjective experience in the world. So I think that's a big deal, and I think that's a big a step that we need to focus on. I think there is the trend is here, the focus on mental health. So I'm glad it's getting into the popular space. But yeah, I think that's one thing I would like kind of have a push back on, that not everything in the mental health space might be better. But again, I'm not sure how mentally healthy were people before.
Yeah, exactly.
But it seems like they were a little bit, at least the meaning wise, which then creates a lot of mental health results, from the meaning itself that we feel, I think.
Well, first, when average lifespan was 20 years, you didn't have time to think about these issues. Now, because we live longer and because we have more time, we begin to think about what is the meaning of life besides work also. I mentioned pyramids before, the demographic pyramid, but I like the Abraham-Maslow pyramid of human needs. First, it's survival. Eat, sleep. Then you move into other things, and you keep on going into a self-realization.
Yes.
So you become more and more. You have time for you to create. And I think we are going that way. In fact, if we lived at the time of the cave people, the cave people 50,000 years ago, they just had to survive. They had nothing but survival problems. Yeah. Then agriculture was invented. Agriculture was invented about 10,000 years ago. And that allowed people to move into cities and to split work. People had different responsibilities. Now we are in a similar transition. We are going to be producing more and more with less and less. And artificial intelligence and machines are going to help us move into a higher realm of productivity and economy and humanity. And I love technology because technology is what makes humans humans. Because otherwise we are animals. We are animals with technology. Why don't we live like the chimpanzees? Because we have technology. And we are going to have more and more technology. In fact, even to go to colonize the moon, to colonize Mars. We are going to go into space. And I'm really excited. And I want to see it. And I want to be a part of it. And I want to go to the moon and Mars.
Yeah, I'm really excited as well. There is you mentioned Maslow's pyramid, right, of needs, and there is now work of Scott Barry Kaufman. He's very famous psychologist. He has podcasts. He has authored some books, and one of those books is Advancement of the Maslow's pyramid, which was never meant to be actually a pyramid. and he didn't finish his work on actually meaning and spirituality that was beyond the pyramid itself. It was part of the self-actualization. And Scott Barry Kaufman, I recommend him, is very, very good. And he talks about and kind of is trying to gather all the resources from the Maslow's work and expand that. The paradox of opposition to extended health span, I want to mention that because that's the idea of, yes, we are saying to ourselves, oh, we have such a short time. What are we, I want to do all these things, right? We want to be healthy, young, and we don't want to die. And then we are also so therefore the idea is to extend the health span, right? Mm-hmm. But then comes the idea of, oh, but immortality, no, not that, right? But like actually the extending of health span, well, where does it end? If you feel healthy, young, and full of ideas,
you will want to live.
You will want to live. This is the paradox, right? Yeah. So that will lead to immortality. It has to, if you continue this way, right? Yeah. So I wanted to mention this paradox from your book because it's fascinating to me. Our errors in the thinking and our biases, and I think it's because,
in fact, until now, we had to justify death because there was no way out.
Right.
And in fact, it is so tragic that we prefer not to talk about it. We don't like to talk about death and about aging and dying because we had no alternative. So you try to escape, avoid, put it behind you.
Romanticize it and stuff.
Yes, but now we are very close to defeat aging. Like this is the final battle. This is the end of the war against aging and death. So I am not going to stop. My goal is to kill death before death kills me. And this is a matter of time. We are talking about 10 years, 20 years, maybe a little bit more. It depends on how much people understand that this is real, this is scientific, and that we are very, very close.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. I wanted to mention the work of Ernst Becker. I've came across him a few months back when I was researching for an episode about death and kind of idea of immortalities. But he has the idea of immortality projects. Mm-hmm. That a lot of the things that we do in life and motivations are little immortality projects that we are building to kind of transcend us. It's very interesting to come into a room of a person that is no longer with us, and you can feel the person through the immortality project that he's kind of built around him. Yes. And I think this idea is interesting because I think to be able to be immortal, we have to learn to die as well. And I will let you what I mean. I think that we are, throughout our lives, we are closing and closing. Our brain and physical structure is less and less fluid, and we are more and more framing into some frame of mind and perception of reality, and it's harder to evolve. That is possibly solvable as well in the future, right? Mm-hmm. But I think we have to be able to let go of our ideas, actually, to let go of the frames of mind and to the old ways and modes of thinking to be able to evolve. So Ernest Becker calls this a little death that we have to go through, and it hurts your ego, right? Because it's like I thought I was right, and I have to say no, you're right. It's a little death of me. So I think to be able to be immortal, we have to learn to die this way. What do you think about that?
Well, sure. We die in a way every day. When we go to bed, we leave a part of us, and then we are reborn the following day. Mm-hmm. So actually, you are not the same that you were when you were 10 years old. And you are not the same as you will be in 10 years in the future. So we keep on changing. We keep on, if you want, dying. But I don't like the word dying and death. I think is not the best way. We are different people. We keep on evolving. We keep on changing. Also with education, we need to learn, to unlearn, to relearn, because things are changing so fast. So we need to be open-minded to all of these ideas. Also, death will be optional, which is the important point. It is not mandatory. If still some people want to die, okay, you are free to die.
Like in Switzerland right now, for example.
Yes, there is euthanasia, for example. Yeah. But again, people do this because they are old and sick. Mm-hmm. So if you are young and healthy, most likely you will not want to die. So that's my goal, that we are young and healthy, full of energy, full of ideas, in a world of abundance, which is the important thing. We have never lived in a richer world than today. You know, until the 18th century, the average income per capita was $1,000, $1,000 per person per year. Now, in some countries, in the richest countries in the world, including Ireland, Luxembourg, and some other places, it is $100,000 per person per year. So we are producing so much more, and we have more time, and we will have more time in the future. So I'm really excited. This is truly the best time to be alive and to remain alive indefinitely and young.
Beautiful. That's, yeah, I mean, how did you are all the time full of energy and positivity. That's from what I've known you for a few days. Where did it come from? How do you keep yourself young in spirit and full of energy and optimism?
Well, I think it is very important to have a positive outlook in life. There is this famous psychologist, Viktor Frankl, that survived the concentration Nazi camps in Germany. And he said that the people who had a hope, who were positive, are the ones most likely to survive because they had a dream, they had hopes. So I think this is fundamental. So I do believe we have to be optimistic. Also, Henry Ford, of the Ford company, the car company, he said that if you believe you can do it, or if you believe you cannot do it, in both cases, you are right. If you cannot do it, you will not do it, if you believe that. But I think we are very close to immortality, and it's going to be fantastic because I plan to be younger. In fact, I plan to be younger than you today. Of course, you will be younger yourself as well, because most people will want to be in a biological age between 20 and 25, which is the top physical body and biological age. So most people will like that. But again, this is not mandatory. If someone wants to die, well, feel free to die.
Okay, I have a big question that's been on my mind related to this. When we actually move ourselves into the space of this being possible, I am very curious about how you look at the dividing of the humanity into people who, I don't know, can afford it, places that will allow it. Just the physical location itself might be important. Maybe it's going to be developed in some lab, and then the lab is going to be private, and it's going to be millions of dollars. How do you solve this issue?
Well, it will be free for the person.
Why?
Free. How much did you pay for the COVID vaccine? People, of course, it cost billions of dollars to develop the vaccine, as an example. Billions and billions of dollars. But for the patient, it was free. And COVID was nothing compared to aging. All of us are aging and dying, all of us. And we know that for sure. We didn't know if we were going to get COVID and how bad COVID would be. However, we got the free pill.
Yeah. I just want to, sorry for that, because many people are now very divided around COVID and the vaccine. It's a very weird space now because they think being able to see the past, they think like, oh, we were right or we were wrong or something. But like the idea is that we were trying to do the best thing possible at the time that we knew. And actually we've solved some issues. Like, for example, 1 year or 1 day or week of young kids not going to school costs the nation many millions of well, in this case Czech crowns, because I know the Czech, but like not many millions of dollars, but like thousands of dollars. And then you extend that. So 1 day of missing school is correlated with such an economists were counting that, one of the best top rated, like the highest economists in Czech Republic. And it's a big deal, right? And the same thing is for Healthspan, by the way. Yeah. Like every year, we are not able to work, be productive, even for ourselves, not just for other people, right? So I think just to mention the vaccine, you don't really know what would happen without it. First of all, there is data that it's nothing that's like there are conspiracies, right? But like it didn't have the negative effects that are now, that we are now saying, oh, it was worse and didn't work and stuff like that. So I want to just say that
but to my argument, that is irrelevant in a way, because COVID did paralyze the planet, even for people who did not want to get the vaccination. But at the end, everybody who wanted the vaccine got it. And this is my point. Because some people will not want to have the anti-aging vaccine or anti-aging pill, and that is okay. You cannot force them, but they will see that it's good and that it works, certainly for reversing aging. And when they see that on other people, as opposed to COVID, you didn't know if you were immunized against COVID after taking a vaccine, but you will see people getting biologically younger and stronger. So that to me is very important. And again, it has to be free. Of course, it will cost billions, trillions of dollars to develop it. But once it is developed, it will be given to everybody who wants it for free. If it is not free, there will be a revolution the following day, in one day. And another example, we are very simple chemically. Most people know we are 70% water. 70% water, and we are not Perrier water or Evian water. We are tap water, 70% of us. The other 30% is the most common and abundant elements of the planet. Besides the oxygen and hydrogen, we have carbon, we have nitrogen, we have potassium, we have calcium. Basically, we have 99% of us. It's only 10 chemical elements, and they're very cheap. So my point is that we don't cost 100 euros in raw materials. We don't. So a machine as simple as us, or maybe not as simple, as cheap as us, because we don't cost $100 or euros, will be cheap to maintain once we know how to do it. We just don't know how to do it, but we will. This is not even rocket science. We are discovering how cancer cells stop aging. We are discovering that in the next few years. So this is moving along very fast. We know this is possible. Immortality exists. We just replicate it and do it better. And again, it will be free because we are $100 machine.
Interesting. I see the argument of even when the private company, I don't know, some pharma comes up with immortality pill or whatever, I see that they need profit, right? And I see the government investment would be would make much sense, because aging is very expensive. Very expensive for the economy. Yes. Therefore, every day that you decrease and extend health span, it's going to be many, for whole humanity, it's going to be trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars. Therefore, the idea is that you can basically spend almost kind of any amount of money, in a way, like very big amount of money as a nation, to provide the immortality pill to people.
Yes.
Okay, I see the argument, because then you have more money because people are having a longer health span and they can sport and buy things. And
let me tell you one thing. In advanced economies, people waste or expend 80% of the medical money, the medical expenditures, is in the last 2 to 3 years of life. 80%. Right. And still you die. If you didn't die after 80% of the medical expenditures, it would be justified, but then you still die. What is going to happen now? That 80% of the money that goes to the end of your life goes at the beginning, so that you do not age. So you see, it's even with the same amount of money that we put, but we don't need to put it at the end. We put it at the beginning so that we don't age. So it's a very different idea. It's a change of paradigm. Don't put the money at the end when you die. Put it at the beginning so that you don't age.
That's a beautiful idea. I like that. All right. Moving on a little bit. So these were like the economic issues and questions I kind of had. I would like to ask you about the second option. If the immortality isn't here yet, or for some reason is not happening, what is the second option that humanity, scientists, and exploration and what are we researchers? What are we looking at the kind of a second option?
This is what some people call Plan B.
Plan B. Yeah.
Plan B is cryonics, which is human cryopreservation. This was also impossible 100 years ago. In fact, even 70 years ago, when it was discovered that you could freeze and unfreeze sperm, and this was used for animals, with the cows and the bulls. So you could do this, and then 70 years ago, it began freezing sperm. Then we saw it was the same for human sperm. You can freeze human sperm and unfreeze it. But it didn't work with the eggs because eggs are much bigger and eggs have a lot of water. So it took 10 years until another mechanism, which is called vitrification, was discovered, which basically takes out the water of the cell and puts a cryoprotector. With that, you can freeze and unfreeze the egg. We have had so far until now over 12 million humans who have been born after having been frozen as embryos or as eggs. So in the population of the planet, 12 million people plus have already been frozen. It is true that at a very small level, and it is not the same a big person that a small embryo or a small egg or even a smaller sperm. But the fact is that we are advancing very fast. Right now, we can freeze and unfreeze or cryopreserve and reanimate rabbit kidneys, the kidneys of rabbits. And now scientists are learning how to do this with the kidneys of pigs, which are almost the same size as a human kidney. So we are going to be able to freeze and unfreeze most organs probably in 10 years. And that includes the brain, because the brain is like the most important organ. Our memories, our knowledge, our gloves are mostly in the brain. So we need to preserve the brain. And so I think we are also very close to that. There are hundreds of people who have been cryonically suspended in the world. I cryopreserved the first person in the Spanish Peninsula.
You?
Yeah, well, with my friends, yes. Yeah. And now we have 4 Spanish people who are cryonically suspended, and there are hundreds in the planet waiting for the time when we can reanimate them. And also, I think this is going to be very fast. In 30 years, probably we will be able to reanimate people that have been properly cryopreserved.
Well, yeah, but there was a talk here in Vitalia by Ben Best, and there was a talk about like it's actually not an idea to kind of bring them back to life, but actually it's an idea to preserve some of the tissue and some of the things, like for example the brain, to be able to have them then moved into some other form, kind of a thing. But so that's also seems very sci-fi, but we might be talking about thousands of years. Also, it doesn't have to be 30; it can be 1,000 and more. But the idea what you're saying is very interesting, because this year, or I mean last year, 2023, there were 3 new cryopreservants discovered. So that's very interesting. Ben Best talked about the advances in the vitrification process. It's amazing to me that we were able to have the kidney of the rabbit, frozen, vitrified, and then again come back and it was functioning, right? Yes. So the same experience, the same company does research with the brain, does research with the pig.
With all the organs, the organs. To me, this is a matter of time.
Okay.
That is why we have to think about this throughout history. And also organ transplants. Organ transplants were science fiction, and even when they began like heart transplant, it was thought horrible. Oh, you are going to have the heart of a dead person. Maybe you will know his loves and his affairs, his romantic affairs, like if love was in the heart. It's basically in the brain. But anyway, so now this is normal. Now you can do transplants of basically most organs, skin, blood, muscle, heart, etc., etc. And not only fleshy organs, but biochemical created organs. Anyway, this is Plan B. But I think we are going for plan A, which is immortality. In fact, I think anybody who is even in their 60s, maybe even 70s, will make it, because if we reach longevity escape velocity by 2030, as I explain in my book, The Death of Death, that will make us win time year per year, even if it's still aging, until we rejuvenate people in the next 2 decades. So we are very close. But plan B, cryonics, is important because also there are accidents.
Right.
You know, if the ceiling falls on us, you know, we need to be frozen or do something else, depending on how badly damaged we are. But anyway, there are accidents. And sadly, there are still homicides and suicides. So there are different ways to die. So I don't plan to die, and I plan to be younger. So I plan to make it to longevity escape velocity, and then later to rejuvenation technologies.
That's beautiful. I wanna mention also someone might ask who would fund the cryonics research and stuff like that. It's very interesting because the kidney is the most transplanted organ in the world. Therefore, if we manage to do kidneys, it's going to be a huge funding and huge, huge bump of this research. So I'm very excited to hear what's happening, and it's exciting to hear from people who've been like Ben Bass, who've been in the field for tens of years, and
he was even president of the Cryonics Institute, which is in Michigan in the USA for 10 years almost. So he has seen this, and he himself is amazed of how much has been done in the last 20 years or even more. Another thing which is really incredible is that in the last few years, many other cryonics centers have been open. One in Switzerland just last year in 2023, also one in Australia. And then there was another one in China maybe 7 years ago. They already have 13 patients in China. We call them patients because we think we can reanimate them. They are not dead people. I mean, they are just cryonically suspended. They are basically frozen, you could say, until we unfreeze them. So anyway, this is growing globally. And even in countries where we don't have cryonic centers like Spain, we can do the initial procedure and then send our patients to other countries. Like the 4 Spanish patients, 2 are in the USA, 1 is in Germany, and 1 is in Russia.
Wow. Very, very fascinating. And then to talk practically about like logistics when someone is about to die, there's still like problems that are being solved right now, like by engineering and having different softwares on our gadgets, such as Oura Ring and stuff like that. What if Oura Ring stops like measuring the heartbeat, and then it gives a signal to the cryonics clinic? If I paid you pay kind of an insurance for that, right? And I've heard that it's actually not that expensive now to pay the insurance, so it's very interesting, like few $100 per month. So
no, even less. If you are young, you can pay only 30 euros of insurance in this
to get
in this place in Switzerland.
Wow, that's amazing. That's kind of close to Prague, so I might consider it.
but again, this is as plan B in case of an accident or so, because you are young enough to make it to longevity escape velocity and to rejuvenation without any problem.
I'm getting actually excited. Like I always was like thinking of, I might never see like different entities from the universe, like some aliens, either conscious or not conscious. I might never live to the moment. And you're actually starting to convince me like, I might, there might be this breakthrough and I might make it. That's interesting.
Yes.
Just the interesting idea that we are pondering now. Anyway, I want to move a little bit further. We are getting close to the end, but I want to ask you, what are things that you are yourself afraid of?
Well, I love life, so therefore I don't want to die. That is why I'm doing all my time now is towards longevity, rejuvenation in many ways. Scientifically, politically, I have been involved in politics, socially, media. What you are doing is important to let people know that this is scientific and this is happening fast. So I am afraid. Well, notice that I am afraid because I'm not, but I don't want to die.
Yeah.
Certainly, I enjoy life too much, and I want to enjoy more life. But yeah, I'm not afraid of anything myself. And I am afraid of also family members and friends dying. Is horrible thing.
Yeah.
But again, it's not being afraid. It's that I don't want it. It's not the same.
Right. It doesn't have the emotional balance, but you just don't want it. It's like more of a rational decision rather than emotional, like, oh no.
Yes.
Right. Find meaning of life, at least your meaning in life, or are you still looking for it? And if you did, what is it for you?
Well, I don't think there is one meaning,
Yeah.
I think things keep on changing. We keep on changing. We keep on learning. We keep on discovering. And as I said, I plan to go to the moon. And this is serious. And I plan to go to Mars. And this is very serious. Maybe I will have a different meaning on Mars. Well, or in the moon. Imagine having a honeymoon in the moon. Isn't that incredible? Or
Wow.
imagine having a honey Mars on planet Mars. We don't know what that is, a honey Mars, but we might have a honey Mars. So the future is incredible. It's going to be even more incredible, and I want to say it, and I am all excited, and I am dedicating all my life and more to see the future and to create the future, also to help to create the future.
Wow. Yeah, it feels like talking to you for over an hour now. You're giving me this inspiration of, oh, I want this too. Like I wanna have that too. It's beautiful because like either way, however it will end, you are you right now, and you have this energy and you have this outlook on life, and you are increasing the possibility and chance of it happening.
Yes.
It's bullshit for me to think, oh, well, that's weird, that's bullshit, I'm not gonna be interested in it. Well, you're closing for your opportunities or humanity opportunities by a little bit because you're close to that. So I'm always trying to have the most pragmatic mindset about things, and this seems to me very pragmatic because it doesn't have to happen, but if it does, I mean, you are, increasing the chances of that happening. So thank you thank you so much for that, for just like for myself and of course for what you are putting out there, because I think you are affecting people in a positive way, and I can see that around you. Everyone likes you. A lot of people admire you and talk to you, and you talk to people. You're a normal guy. Immortality. You're a fun person to be around. So thank you for that. I appreciate it.
Well, I think this is going to be fantastic for all of us, and we need to be positive, optimistic. I visited Sir Arthur C. Clarke, who is one of the most famous science fiction writers. When he was alive, he died in 2008, I think. Anyway, I visited him in Sri Lanka, Colombo, Sri Lanka. And he told me something which is really interesting. We have to be positive always, because this is in our minds, and it ends up as a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yeah.
Self-fulfilling prophecy. So if we believe we can, that we transcend, that we will become immortal, then most likely that will happen. But if we believe the future will be horrible, that we will die, that this is the end, then it will most likely happen. Mm-hmm. So it begins with our minds. That is why I tell people we need to be positive, we need to be optimistic. And anyway, the alternative is horrible. The alternative is to be dead. At least if you are alive, you can complain. Or you can say, okay, it's not so good, but you are alive, you can change.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I think that any subjective experience has immense value.
Absolutely.
And just by existing, it's like a huge bonus to just be here, and it's a reason to be grateful. Absolutely. So yeah, I share that very much. I think your book is very, very, it's written in a way of like, I've been able to read some of it and go through it, and there's like arguments and counter arguments, and it's very nicely written. It's not about only like the scientific things. It's actually very readable, people can understand it. It's very nice. So thank you for the job, and I recommend the book.
And it's
definitely
coming out in Czech also. So
Oh,
I'm
really?
excited.
Nice. Let's go.
It will be sometime in 2024, probably in the fall. It will be in Czech, so I will be happy to go back to Prague. And it's coming in more languages. It's coming in Persian.
Yeah.
It's coming in Greek. So I'm really, really excited.
Yeah. Is there any last words that you would want to share with our audience?
Yes. We are going to see more changes in the next 20 years than in the last 2,000 years. Incredible. In the next 2 decades, more technological advances than in the last 2 millennia. So we really have seen nothing of the future, nothing. And when we walk on Mars, this will be truly revolutionary. We will see that we have evolved in this tiny, tiny planet. And from this tiny, tiny planet, we are beginning to go around the solar system. So it is so beautiful, so exciting. And again, the final point is it's incredible times. This is the best time to be alive. We are between the last mortal generation and the first immortal generation. So where do you want to be?
That's beautiful. And I actually came up with another question, which I really want to ask you. So that's the last question. And that's what are one of your favorite thinkers and sources of information that, transforms you maybe? So maybe like, are there 3 favorite thinkers that you would recommend from any field?
Yeah. Well, in this area, because I'm putting most time in this area, I love Ray Kurzweil. Yeah. Ray Kurzweil, who is the one talking about the singularity. In fact, he sent me the manuscript of his latest book, which is called The Singularity is Nearer. The Singularity is Nearer. And he talks about 2030 for longevity, escape velocity, and 2045 for immortality and the singularity. So I recommend his book coming out in this year. Also, Peter Diamandis, which is the other co-founder of Singularity University. He's writing a book called The Age of Abundance, which is a continuation of his first book, Abundance, where he also explains about the amygdala and all that. And then in more general science, I think Michio Kaku is an incredible scientist. In fact, all of them have written in my book. Michio Kaku says that he also believes in immortality, that is coming, but he thinks it might take a century. I disagree. I think this is coming in 20 years, not in a century. But anyway, so Michio Kaku is fantastic. He has great books. The Physics of the Impossible is one. Another one, The Physics of the Future. These books open up your mind to space travel, travel faster than light, to immortality, to unlimited energy in the universe. So many incredible things that will be possible. So I think those 3, Michio Kaku, Ray Kurzweil, and Peter Diamandis, are a must.
Beautiful. Yeah, I love Michio Kaku. Actually, I love all these 3, but I've read Michio Kaku the most. Yeah, he's very cool. So that's amazing that they've written into your book like a note or something, right?
Yeah. Testimonials.
Testimonials. That's the word. Okay, so where can people find you? Any link? Where can people find the book?
Well, if you Google The Death of Death, and I don't know how it will be called in Czech. My Czech is pretty bad, non-existent. But once I become immortal, I will have time to learn Czech. So anyway, thedeathofdeath.org. You can see the book in many languages, and you can download it also in some languages. And my personal website is my last name, cordeiro.org, cordeiro.org. And I'm also in Wikipedia.
Yeah. I'll finish this by a great quote by George Bernard Shaw. All great truths begin in blasphemies. I like it. Jose, Thank you so much. I've enjoyed thoroughly. It was really interesting conversation. I'm really glad that we did this. And I'm glad that we were able to meet through the Vitalia city in Rotan, in Prospera, a very, very unique place to be in. Yes. I hope many more places like these are going to pop up around the world. And if you like this conversation, share it with your social bubble, with your family, dog, sister, brother, mom, dad, grandpa.
And watch this in 2045.
Yes, I'll also take my phone and do it in calendar, so we all together can do this. And just meet in the comments in 21 years. So that's really exciting. Thank you so much for watching, and see you guys again next time. Thank you. Bye. And thank you, Jose, again so much for your time.
A pleasure.
Thank you. Brave VR.